Welcome to the Reporters Square Table presented by Lending Tree. I'm Matt Ruczynski, joined today by John Folke, the radio voice of the Charlotte Hornets, Sam Perley, our Hornets.com beat writer, and Rod Boone, who covers the Hornets for The Athletic. Welcome, Rod. How you doing?
I am doing great today, Matt. How you doing, sir?
I am doing tremendous. I don't know if you guys have ever read Rod's bio, Sam and John, on The Athletic, but I got to imagine right now you're probably playing Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reruns right now for your daughters. Have you introduced them to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
They can actually recite the song pretty much by heart. That's how much I watch it, man, for real.
Right. So, we haven't had a chance to catch up with you guys in a while. We had Sam and John off last week. Rod, we haven't seen you since the quarantine began.
Yes.
Just talk to us a little bit, guys, about how things have been going for you, Rod, especially for how things have been going for you so far.
Well, for me, I'm still covering the team, as you can tell, trying to write stories, 2 or 3 per week, almost minimum, to kind of keep the fans engaged because, as you know, even though sports have stopped, people still want something to kind of gravitate toward and just read something to kind of take the mind off what's happening right now with the quarantine stuff. So,
you could not be more accurate.
Exactly. So I'm trying to just do what I can and just kind of just go out there and bring people good stories. Been doing stuff with The Last Dance a little bit. So trying to do what I can, man, to just keep busy and just keep people happy with my stories pretty much.
And we're starting to see more and more basketball stories emerge. Sam and John, for you guys too, as we're looking at this, I've never been around a coach who has been so blatantly honest about what his plan is heading into a season. And then to say that we're going to establish these 4 pillars. We're going to develop, compete, build winning habits, and create an up-tempo style of play. And then to go out and actually do that is amazing. John, can you just kind of talk about what the coach was able to do in establishing those pillars and really following through?
Well, what I think is interesting, and having covered the NBA now for 13 seasons, in September, everybody's willing to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is the type of team that we're going to be. It's hard to stick to that. It's hard in January when you've lost a couple of games in a row and you're trying to get out of a losing streak, or you're struggling with injury, something like that, to stay committed to that, to stay committed to the young guys, to stay committed to the plan when you just want to get out of it, whatever that situation is. But I think JB, the front office, the coaching staff in general, and the guys have all been on the same page right from the jump, understanding how to go about this process. And because of that, they were committed to it. There was a loyalty to it, and they were able to stay when they were struggling, when they did lose Marvin Williams, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, and they had to turn to the young guys. So I think the commitment to the vision from the top on down is really what impressed me the most.
Yeah, and Sam, you're around this team every day, and you saw this team continue to bond as they were going through these things. What do you think it was that kept this team together so well?
It's a really good question. First, to echo John, I think it's a great idea or great statement when he said anybody can set out to do anything to start the year. But when you're getting into January and February, do you stick to the plan? I think that's really good. I think it's just resiliency. I mean, you talk about building winning habits. Resiliency is one of those. So when you go on a West Coast trip and lose all 4 games, some of them really, really close, to kind of stick together through that, that's kind of a sign that this plan is working. And I think one of the things you do in kind of making this plan public is you hold yourself accountable. So whether it's, this is what we're trying to do, if we're not doing it, this is why, or you need to call us out on it. And I really like that. I like the honesty. I like the upfrontness, the transparency of JB. And it wasn't just a coaching staff thing. I mean, we were preaching it from all facets of the organization to, ticket holders, partnerships. We can't guarantee that we're going to win every single game, but this is what you're going to get. You're going to get a team that's competitive, a team that competes, a team that's looking to build, that's not going to fold, when they're down 20, it's going to keep playing hard. So, it was really, really impressive to see, because it's not easy to do those things. I mean, even 65 games to go in every single night and do all these is very, very challenging. So kudos to the coaching staff for what they're able to accomplish this year.
Yeah, great kudos for the staff, but also for the team. For Rod, you also follow the team. What did you see from these guys as they were kind of going? You travel with the team from time to time as well, and you get to see them on the road.
I kind of echo what Sam said. These guys are just really resilient. You just can kind of just feel every game, confidence growing. And when you have a head coach like JB, who has his principles, he talks to you directly in terms of what he wants from you, what he expects from you, He's not one of those coaches who kind of gives you the BS and tries to be your friend. He said to us, back in, I think it was September, he learned last year as a first-year coach, you can't really please everybody. He learned that the hard way because you want to be able to have your players obviously like you when you come first as a first-year coach, but as you learn that it's not about being these guys' friends. It's about actually going out there and being the best coach you can, being the best you can out of each and every player on your team. So having a coach like JB, to me, has been beneficial for these guys because as a young team, you want somebody to kind of gravitate toward and lead you. He's definitely done that in the first couple of years here with the Hornets.
For those
of you to jump in, if I could just jump in real quick to follow up on that. One thing that really impressed me about JB, this was the first year, obviously, that I covered him, but how even-keeled he is, whether it's on the sideline, whether it's in practice, whether it's with the media, and that rubs off on these guys. And it's not just even-keeled through wins and losses, but it's even-keeled within the flow of the game. If there's a turnover, yeah, maybe he snaps his fingers or claps his hands, but then it's on to the next play. If there's a call that goes against the Hornets, it's maybe talk to the referee, whatever, on to the next play. And you see that from the guys on the court. So they never really allowed themselves to get frustrated, to get caught in the mire, because it was always moving on to that next play, to that next game, coming in and being ready to work. And I think that was a big testament to JB and on to the staff that got to the players and allowed them to stay committed to it because they weren't dwelling on what happened previously or even the previous play.
Yeah, you mentioned the staff and the assistants and the job that JB did kind of translating that message and getting the right staff who were going to accomplish the goals he had set out to do. John, you've had a chance to sit down and talk with a lot of these assistant coaches on our clipboard conversations. Rod, one of your series, the Boone Docs, over the course of the season, if folks haven't read it, please go back on The Athletic, check it out. Rod did a tremendous job really breaking down all of the assistant coaches and how they factor in here and what they're doing to hit on all four of these pillars. So I want to ask you guys first, and when we're looking at these pillars, the first one that pops up is development. Obviously, development has been a key all season long. For you, let's start with Sam. Sam, for you, who have you seen the most development from over the course of this season?
Oh, you could pick up just about 7 or 8 guys. We would say PJ Washington, but he came out of the gates firing that first night. The first one that pops in my head, probably Cody Martin. I think this is a guy, second-round rookie, obviously a little bit older, played summer league and started the year kind of going back and forth to G League and had a role, but it was more of kind of just the energy guy. And then towards the end of the year, it was this guy is a vital part of the defense, a vital part of the energy. And then I think to kind of cheat your answer, I'm going to add 2 more is Jalen and Caleb too, because they, again, started in the G League and you got to the end of the season. Jalen is the first guy off the bench. Caleb, those last 2 games, 19, 20 points. I mean, I think those 3 guys, but maybe Cody Martin specifically with just what he was able to do. And you could also credit him for a lot of that sort of energy and development rubbing off on other guys as sort of like a blueprint for other guys. So probably Cody Martin, I think, has developed the most for me this season compared to where he was the start of the year.
I'll tell you what, that's a typical reporter's answer, guys. Like, you ask him one question and he gives me 3 answers instead. I know that it's a loaded question. I know there's a lot of options. You just can't take them all away from Rod and John either. Rod, who do you
Exactly. I made it harder. I'm sorry.
Rod, who do you think, man? Who did you see the most development from?
Well, Sam made a good point with, Cody Martin. Essentially he came out as a second-round pick. Was going to probably be in the G League pretty much the entire year. To see what he's done, to have his confidence just go through the roof, start a couple of games, be able to hit jump shots from the perimeter, stuff he wasn't able to do months ago, he's able to do right now. So Sam is right with that one, but to me, it's got to be Devontae. Devontae's jump from year 1 to year 2 is pretty much insane. And we know it's partly because of opportunity. We know that he obviously didn't play much last year because he had Kemba in front of him and also had Tony Parker in front of him. When you look at the guy this year, and kind of just what he's done, to go from, basically he averaged 13.5, I think, points more per game this year than he did last year. That's astronomical. Some guys don't even average that much per season. So to make that jump and to be the team's leading scorer in his really his first year, to be honest, his first year as a full-time player. Gotta give him a lot of credit, man. That goes to the staff as well, because the staff worked hard with Devontae over the summer. I'm even going back to summer league to kind of make sure that he was ready to be available if his name was called the way it was this year, and he was, man. You got to give him a lot of credit, and the staff credit too.
Yeah, John, Devontae obviously was amazing this year. So was Cody Martin. These names we're talking about, each one of these guys showing this development. Who's another guy who stood out for you?
Well, obviously, Terry Rozier, first time as a full-time starter, ended up just a tick under 18 points a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, shot 40% from 3. I thought what he did with the higher usage from his time in Boston to now being as efficient as he was, and I still think there's a lot of room to improve for Terry. So I thought his jump was very good, but I'm going to go to Jalen McDaniels because we had Jalen come in, a late second-round pick. We didn't really know what his situation was going to be, whether he was going to be able to excel at the G League and see some spot time at the NBA level, whether he was going to be in the G League all year. And all of a sudden, they went down there with a plan, as they did for the Martin twins when you're in the G League, as they did for Devontae a season ago, Dwayne Bacon a season ago. And Jalen, I thought, bought into it. And you go back to his time at San Diego State where he was a redshirt freshman, and there was a plan for him, and he understood that, and he got better each year. And they went in with a plan for him this year, work on these things in the G League. And to Sam's point, he was the first guy off the bench when you think about those last couple of games before the season was suspended. So I was really impressed with him. I know JB has talked a lot about him being a sponge and incredibly coachable. And it's not just, the scoring, the three-point shooting, the rebounding. What impressed me about Jalen was his defense. And I go to that San Antonio game. It was one of the final home games during that 4-game homestand. And he's guarding, switching off on DeMar DeRozan. And here's second-round pick Jalen McDaniels. He's staying down on DeRozan. It was just pump fake, pump fake, pump fake from these elbows. And we forget, man, Jalen's 6'10", so he doesn't have to jump for these pump fakes. He just puts his arms up, and he's defending that way. So I was really impressed with the way, with his arc of development this season.
I love when we're talking about this. Every guy that you've mentioned, Devontae, we're talking about the Martin brothers. We're talking about Jalen, and Sam brought it up earlier. These are all guys who have gone through the Greensboro Swarm, who have gone through the G League experience. So, I guess when Coach says about building winning habits, the thing I liked about that is it's not just building winning habits on the court. It's doing the right things on the court, making the right plays, getting in those late game moments, but it's also building habits off the court. And I think one of those things that is impacted is when these guys do go down to the G League and get the right experience and have the right commitment. And we've seen those. What are these habits that we've been building are most impressive to you, Rob, what you've seen from these guys?
Well, I think just work ethic, man. You can see the young players themselves. A lot of time we have practice. We're getting let in to talk to the players or coach after practice. You can see Devontae, you see Miles, PJ, Biz. I can give you basically every guy on the team. At some point in the season, I've seen them after practice working on something to coach, or maybe a jump hook, maybe a drive to the lane for Devontae, maybe a jump shot for Miles, maybe some post-up work for PJ. You can just see this team, these players like to work. And that's the first part to me of building a winning organization is you have to have guys who not only buy into what you say, but want to work and go out there and give you 100% every day. Not just during practice time, it's before practice, it's after practice, it's off days, it's shoot-arounds, it's optionals, all these different things. I see the young guys from the Hornets basically just sponging out there, just trying to do whatever they can to become better players. And that, to me, goes back to the coaching staff because those guys have instilled the work ethic, and not only in themselves, but in the entire organization and roster to make sure you can be a part of this team going forward. You better make sure you work and show that you try to improve each and every day.
Yeah, and for John, you're on the road with these guys, traveling all 41 games on the road. What have you seen on the road that these guys are building those winning habits as well?
Well, I think we've said the words player development quite a bit, and player development is not just with the coaching staff. Players have to want to develop. And to Rod's point, there's a work ethic there, but these guys want to get better. And what really stood out to me was how within the season, Devontae and Terry, two guys that were your primary scorers, your primary ball handlers, they added things to their game in season. And like, think about how tough that is. I mean, you're just struggling to get practice time in season. And here, these guys are adding the ability to finish around the rim. I think Terry and Devontae, both those guys are some of the best, like, tough finishers. I mean, finishing on the left side with their right hand, on the right side with their left hand, through contact, adding, the floater game for Devontae. Both these guys added a shot that I thought was just amazing. And in the last two games at Atlanta and at Miami, we saw it on display a lot. It's that sidestep into a three. So they built the step back, which was devastating. Teams started to crowd that out, close out on that. So in season, these guys added, okay, they fake the step back and they step to the side. And I mean, how hard is that to do in season when you're carrying a huge offensive load like both these guys are, and you're through 65 games with very little practice time. So I think it goes to, if you're going to build winning habits, you've got to be able to develop. And while the coaching staff might say, hey, we're about player development, that's a huge piece of it, but the players have to want to develop. And I think that the Hornets have the right guys with the right mindset to get better.
And you make a tremendous point, John, too, in that all of these pillars, it's amazing how they kind of roll into each other. That if you're doing one, it's going to lead to the other. If you're developing and you're building those winning habits, it's going to lead to being more competitive on the court. That's going to lead to us, wanting to play aggressive style of basketball, because as you get more competitive, you get more confident. And we've seen that as this team has, competed and created that style of play. Sam, have you seen the confidence just kind of rise with this team with each passing game?
Absolutely. And I think the confidence isn't necessarily dictated by the win-loss, but I think a lot of the confidence this season was built upon these guys know they've been, to echo what Rod said, these guys have been working hard. They know they put in the work. They know they're watching film. And it's a lot of those like off the court habits that I think it's the getting the right amount of sleep. It's eating well. I mean, this is stuff that's not easy to teach 21, 22-year-old rookie NBA players, or at least for them to pick up on it right away. It takes a long time. But for having guys buy into the system, buy into the plan right now, that's sort of, you go into a game and, hey, it doesn't matter we're playing the Milwaukee Bucks or the Houston Rockets or the Miami Heat. We've done the work. We're confident. We know we can hang with any team in the league. And I think that confidence of just the preparation beforehand sort of builds on itself. And I think you really saw that the last 2 weeks, because this team didn't back down from anybody, regardless of who it was, whether it's Rockets, Bucks, Spurs. And those are some of the best teams in the league, and they were hanging there right till the end, and in some cases actually beating them.
We're still on pause in the season. Obviously, nothing has been decided yet. But this team was playing so well, as we entered into this hiatus right now. And, as we've talked to the players, as we talked to Coach, they've all mentioned how good they were feeling at the point in time when the hiatus began. Where did you see this team kind of headed, Rod, when the season, got put on hold?
Right. I mean, they were playing their best basketball, and you wanted to kind of see what would have happened, because if you're a Hornets fan, you got season tickets to the season or whatever, most of the games you were waiting for were about to come up. The Lakers, the Clippers, you just saw the Rockets come in, the Spurs come in, Toronto's going to come in, the Raptors. Like, you had all these teams that are upper echelon teams getting ready to come in. Miami going to come in, I think, twice. To come in and see these guys, how they perform against the best teams in the league. And as a fan, you got cheated seeing that. So I think you can see them improving to that point, but it's just incomplete right now. So if you're James Borrego, it's like, man, my guys are playing their best ball all year. We just beat the Miami Heat, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, our division leaders, and we pretty much, led the entire game for the most part. They were right there. And it's like those kind of wins, you can't really just put a price on those wins, because the experience you get from beating a team like that is immeasurable. So it feels like they were going to honestly just keep going the way they were going. Maybe they got a couple more wins over big teams, but you just want to see what would have happened. So to not be able to have it finish for the Hornets as a player staff, it's like, man, it feels incomplete because you just wonder what would have happened. You got a couple more weeks to kind of finish this thing off.
Yeah, I kind of liken it to the fact that, when this whole quarantine began and the hiatus began, I started a 1,000-piece puzzle with my daughter. We were pretty hot on it early on. We were PJ Washington out of the gate, man, double-double, stayed up pretty much most of the night to get the whole border built. And then, we got about 2/3 of the thing done, and the rest of it's been sitting over on the table in my workroom, for the last 3 weeks, and that's on us. We put hiatus on the puzzle, I guess. But that's kind of what I would liken it to, because you're sitting there and you're like, I just want to see what this thing would have looked like when it was complete. And John, holding the Milwaukee Bucks to under 100 points for the first time in years to be the team who does that, what was that saying about the defensive mindset that this team was establishing?
Well, I was going to say that this team was becoming a team that was hard to play against. The Houston Rockets did not enjoy playing against the Charlotte Hornets. The Milwaukee Bucks did not enjoy playing against the Charlotte Hornets. San Antonio, Denver, those teams during that homestand, nothing was easy for those teams. And while the Hornets offense wasn't, at the highest of levels as we went into that, to that hiatus, their defense was. And their offense was trending that way. But, if you look at where their defense was at the beginning of the season to where it was over the final 8 to 10 games before the hiatus, I mean, it is night and day with what they were doing. They won a lot of games early with the fact that they were rallying back and winning close games. We've talked ad nauseum about their clutch time numbers. But at the end of the season, they were winning because their defense was holding teams under 100 points and making things incredibly difficult for their opponents. And to me, coming out of the All-Star break with a young team, if you can get better on the defensive end after the All-Star break, that is a huge thing. Because a lot of teams after the All-Star break with young guys where they really turn the keys over to them, it becomes all about offense. And you run it up and down and you're playing at a fast pace and you're trying to outscore people. But there was that commitment that we talked about from day one to getting better on the defensive end. And as they turn the keys over to these young guys, as the makeup of the roster changed in that you're seeing more from the Martin twins, you're seeing the length of Jalen McDaniels impacting, and the way those guys play, everybody kind of bought into that energy on the defensive end. They were a difficult team to play against. And I think when we sit back and look at the season up to the point that it was suspended, the thing that is most encouraging to me is the defensive play from the All-Star break up until mid-March.
So, yeah, I mean, we could talk basketball. How fun has this been so far? Just being able to wrap basketball for a little while has been tremendous with you guys. I got to ask, though, John's got this classic Hornets logo up in the background, so I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball because we all know Fox started broadcasting Hornets classic games. By the time we get this, they'll have aired their first one, and these are on Friday and Sunday. How much are you guys looking forward to just checking out some of these classic games? Sam, we'll start with you.
Well, absolutely. I grew up watching the classic games and got a little bit of a taste of it in The Last Dance, I guess, recently seeing the Hornets. But I was maybe a little too young to really sort of understand maybe the early Larry Johnson Zoe years. I kind of really picked up on things on the Glenn Rice, Anthony Mason, Vlade Divac was like 96, 98, and then through the Baron Davis, Jamal Mashburn and stuff. So I know there's a couple games. It's really cool. And I think this whole quarantine, I know we don't have live sports going on right now, but seeing so many replayed games and so many, rebroadcasts and things like that has definitely been like, you watch a game and you're like, I remember watching this, but I don't think I had the same sort of appreciation, like what a game this was, or like how cool was this at the time. I think it's kind of a weird way. It's given me a newfound appreciation for a lot of like history the NBA has, how many great players we've had, how many great games we've had, how many great moments, seeing different finals, replayed and stuff like that. It's been really cool. Obviously we want live sports, but looking back, and we've got so much great history, particularly in the NBA, to look at and to appreciate. It's done a good job of kind of killing some of this time.
Yeah, and Rod, you had also mentioned you've been watching The Last Dance. If you watch The Last Dance, you watch these Hornets classic games. How much has the game changed from back then, Rod?
I mean, you look at the scores, the first thing, man. I mean, I grew up a Knicks fan watching Knicks games in the 80s and 90s. The high score was like 79, 80 points for a win, you know what I mean? And now teams have that in the third quarter. So to be able to just see these teams, these games, and just how much they meant. Because I think nowadays we're all about offense. It's like in baseball when they had the home run thing, and it's all about offense as opposed to 1-0 games or pitching duels. It's like if you're like me, I grew up in a time when beating somebody up in the lane was just part of basketball. It was just what you did. It was not a foul. It was not offensive. It was not a flagrant. It was just, hey, we're playing hard. You're going to make sure that if you get in this lane, you're going to get a little bit of elbow and make your basket. I'll see you next end of the floor, basically. But now it's like up and down, not very much defense being played. So we have to appreciate watching those games of old because the intensity on defense, the gumption you have to actually go out there just to get one basket. You know what I mean? Just shows the level of play. So while today's game is great, up and down the court, 3-pointers is fine. You know, I'm from the old school, man, where it's beat your butt up if you come in the lane. Otherwise, you don't want to come back in here anytime soon. So I kind of like seeing the old games because it just shows just how much the game has changed from years past to where it is right now.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch for sure. I got to say, Rod, we know that we mentioned earlier your Boondock series, also doing some tremendous work on The Athletic right now. Going away from the court a little bit, we've seen some cool tattoo pieces. We've both done tattoo pieces that were amazing. Go check out Rod's if you haven't done that yet. Go back on The Athletic and take a look at that. But Rod's also doing this thing where he's rating tacos, he's rating pizza, he's rating state parks. He's become the man about Charlotte. So before we go to Rod, I want to ask John, if you were going to make something that you wanted Rod to review, what would be your dish that you would make for Rod to review?
Do I have to make it, or can I let my wife make it?
You can
say the same thing.
If you're being honest and you can't cook whatsoever, then yes. What dish would you want to put in front of Rod?
I would say I can cook. I enjoy cooking, but it is a passion for my wife, and she is amazing at it. So I defer to her. And if I was going to make something for Rod, if I was going to, work with my wife and come up with a menu, and we're going to have Rod over, and Rod's going to critique it, I would go with what we had just the other day. It was homemade chicken parm, and it was outstanding. I mean, when we pulled this thing out of the oven, it was like a work of art. I felt bad eating it. The sauce took all afternoon. I had to pound out the chicken before you breaded it. It was absolutely fantastic. So, Rod, come on over to the Casa del Folk, and we'll line you up, white tablecloth. We'll get you a napkin, and we'll load up some chicken parm for you.
I can't wait, man. It sounds scrumptious, brother. I mean, you just got me over here ready to eat. It's breakfast time, man. I'm ready to come over right now. What's the address? Give it to everybody right now.
What about you, Sam? What would you throw out there?
Well, I'm kind of in the same boat as John, as in I'm not doing nearly as much fancy cooking as my wife, Ashley. But I think one thing that really stands out about what she's concocted, it's less of a dish, but more of like a side thing, is she's gotten really into, we got an ice cream maker. So she's been really into making homemade ice cream, which is not the easiest process in the world. You got to like make it and freeze it for a day and then take it back out and whip it or something. So it takes like a couple days. It's not like you can make it up in 20 minutes, but she made one that was like when she first started experimenting with this sweet cream at the very beginning. And it was like a very, very sweet vanilla, throw some strawberries on it. I think we finished the thing in 2 days, probably a gallon ice cream, just gone, but it was really, really good. So, she's had the time to experiment with things, and I've tried a little bit here and there, but she's been, like John's wife, has taken most of the reins of the cooking, and rightfully so. She's very good at it.
Chicken parm, and
we got dessert. Yeah,
the whole meal here at this point for you, Rod. This is working out pretty well. I think I'm gonna add something from the grill though. Like, I'll be honest, my wife Jen is amazing in the kitchen, been cooking up some amazing stuff, but I've been grilling probably 3 or 4 nights a week right now, So I'm gonna throw in some nice, baby red potatoes there, soak them in a little olive oil, throw a little garlic, a little cracked pepper, a little Himalayan sea salt on there, and my favorite is always to add dill. My kids hate pickles, but you throw dill on anything and it just adds a little flavor to potatoes, and they love it. They don't even realize they're eating pickles. So that's what we're going to do for you, Rod. But what do you think of our meal that we've come up with here? You know?
Like I said, man, it is basically breakfast time right now, brunch time, and you guys have me ready to go fire at my grill right now. Get the ice cream maker out of the basement. You know what I mean? Just let's do it, man.
How much fun have you had doing?
Well, what's that?
How much fun have you had doing those reviews?
Oh man, honestly, they've been really fun because what the purpose of those is to kind of show people that local restaurants are still in business. Let's be honest. It's been a tough time for everybody, man. We're cooped up in the house. You can't go somewhere. Our favorite spots are not serving people as in terms of being able to come and sit down and eat the way you used to. So this is a way for us to let people know, hey, you know what? Your favorite spot may still be open. If it's not, it's a place you can go and actually get some good food. So it's been really a fun thing we've done, trying to just pump people up locally because, again, as we know, man, it's a tough time for everybody right now. People losing their jobs all over the place. Restaurants are really trying to just find a way to come back throughout this whole quarantine thing. So whatever we can do to bring the word and spread people's word about them still being open, that's basically what I'm trying to do with those series. So I'm glad you guys actually enjoyed those.
I know, man. Great message that you're sending out there too. Please make sure, folks out there, that you're supporting all of these folks. You're right. These are people who count on this for a living. We're trying to do it as much as possible too. I know I'm grilling quite a bit, but we try to at least order out once or twice a week just to make a contribution to people that we know, and ordering from local restaurants and our partner restaurants, if you can do that too. Got to put that plug in for sure.
Yes, sir.
Well, this has been tremendous spending time with all three of you guys. I really appreciate you coming on, Rod. We look forward to seeing what you're going to do here the rest of this time as we're in hiatus and as we get ready to start playing basketball again. We're all looking forward to that at some point in time as well.
Sir.
For John Folke, for Sam Purley, for Rod Boone from The Athletic, check out his stuff. I'm Matt Roczynski for Hornets.com, and this has been the Reporters Square Table presented by Lending Tree.